Listen, I'm so glad that you're here. You know, when I sent you a text earlier, it was a typo. So I didn't know what you were saying yes to. So I was glad when you hit that question thing, like what you saying, Coach Debb. Okay, Dr. Joshua, we have a guest host with us today. And her name is Amaris Whitaker. Is that correct, dear?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Amaris. And I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Amaris.
Yes.
I can hear you. I love your voice. You got a radio voice. Yes, girl.
Thank you
We got to bring you back more often.
I would love to come back and spend time, Coach Debb.
Oh, girl. Okay, now. Listen, that's an invite. So it's going to happen. I want to first talk to everybody that's listening out there in Radio Land. Earlier, I came on to let you know that we were on and to let you know that our Amaris, is that correct? Is that your name?
Amaris, hit the am. I am
Amaris. Okay,
watch your tone, young lady. You watch what you say. I am. Watch that. I am now. Watch that.
Right. I told y'all she was coming, and we're going to break down 2025, Project 2025. This is so exciting. This is going to extend to 6 weeks because I want to allow different officials to come on, and I'd love for you to come on weekly so that we can break down the Project 2025. Now, let me just I want to tell everybody before moving forward, Dr. Josh is a regular panelist. So he's a fan favorite. And, just to remind everybody who he is, Dr. Joshua D. Mills. He has a PhD, Doctor of Theology. Of course, he has a SIN Institute on Higher Thinking, also Fellowship and Sons Resource Center, and a whole host of many other things. This brother travels internationally, all over the world. He is a prophet of the Almighty God. Spot on prophet, y'all. That's the kind of prophet this brother is. He is spot on. So I bless God for you. And I'm so glad that you are with me today because I know that, the panelists, everybody got different things going on and they can't always be, on the show together, but it's okay. I have a couple others I think it's going to come in later, but it is well. I want to let everybody know. And Thomas, if you can just give me some hand claps for my brother. Well, go ahead, sugar. It's on you. Give him some hand claps. Yes. I honor my brother today. Indeed.
Bless you. Wow.
I want to introduce my guest, ladies and gentlemen. My God. Amaris. Correct me, as often as you need to. I am so cool with it, honey, because I don't want to mess up your name. But Amaris, that's a beautiful name. Amaris Whitaker was born and raised in Houston, Texas. Currently lives in the Northern Virginia DMV area. She holds a keen interest in disability inclusion, advocacy, holistic and intersectional, social, economic, political, and spiritual community development. Now, y'all, because it's so much to her bio, I'm not going to go into it for the sake of time, but I am going to allow her to share with you along the way whatever it is that she deems necessary to share, because our girl is going to break down Project 2025. And I love credentials because I like for people to know that we bring people, to the show that know what they're talking about. And the panelists, they're brilliant. They know what they're talking about. People tend not to listen to a group of people that just repeat what other people say. But when you've studied to show yourself approved and you know your stuff, it makes a difference.
Absolutely.
So, I want, at this time, we're going to show love to you with a hand clap of praise. Bring it on. The CEO is my engineer. He be waiting on my cue. It's like, come on, Coach Debb. Well, I'm waiting. Let's get it started. I, of course, we have questions from our viewers that about 2025, but let's go ahead and allow you the opportunity, Amaris, to explain what exactly Project 2025 is. What does it represent? Just get that out of the way.
Absolutely. Happy to share. Happy to be here. Like I said, Coach Debb, it's also an honor to meet you, Dr. Mills. So happy to share. I'm especially happy to share because I need our folks, I need us to know how important what is upcoming in the design of government and the decisions being made based off of how we vote in November. It is imperative to know that our actions have consequences and that decisions are being made based on how we move. Specifically, though, talking about Project 2025, it is a culmination of research, work, development, writings, policy recommendations, re-government structuring, and other items that have been provided and assembled primarily by the Heritage Foundation, which is a large conservative think tank in the Washington, D.C. area, that they have been around since 1974, and especially have been essential in guiding not only the policies of key Republican leaders like Ronald Reagan, Bush, both Bushes, and now for former President Donald Trump. They are using this work and research to basically streamline and organize the minute, if elected, day one of his administration, what they intend to do. It intends to be a lot of restructuring of everything from how government employees are hired and classified, all the way to how money that is budgeted by Congress is going to be reallocated if they do not deem that the money is aligned with their agenda. And so I think, just to bring it on home, and happy to go into more detail with more specific questions, but I think the notion is, we think that based off of what happened at that administration in 2016 to 2020, we saw a lot of disorganization. We saw a lot of appointees taking a long time to be appointed. We saw a lot of vacancies in government. We saw a lot of transitions. They are guaranteeing that that's not going to happen anymore. They're coming prepared, organized. They're coming in with folks trained. They're coming in with a clear message, and they're coming in to ensure that the policy from not only conservative minds, multiple think tanks, multiple companies. I think they said about 100 are in partnership with them in the development of this plan, but also to just ensure that the values that they hold dear become mainstream in our federal government.
Wow.
Okay. All right. So I misspoke earlier when I mentioned something around the legislative field. It's not a law. They're putting things in place for the upcoming president, if it's a Republican president, right?
It will affect not only the legislative branch, of course. Policies definitely mean laws passed, like a national abortion ban, as well as different policies on education, commerce, and what have you. Also, Congress controls budget, so legislation also holds the purse strings, right? How is the government going to spend money? But it also is going to affect the executive branch, and we're already seeing how it affects the judicial branch based off of the current Supreme Court justices and the current decisions we see them implementing, like as of last week, this week. So these things are going to affect every single facet of government. And what's I think most important to understand is our government was designed with a lot of checks and balances to ensure that one thought process or alignment doesn't take over the whole government structure. But with these plans in place, they will have the power to do so if successful.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, I was going to ask you to go ahead and step in.
Ask. Y'all know I'm the devil's advocate, and I like to ruffle feathers and different things within the space. But I guess my question is how is this any different from the original intent of the government of the United States? Because for me, I'm seeing the notion, and I talk from more of a I guess a Bible based background, understanding certain things. That's what my upbringing is. But what I'm saying is some of the things I'm seeing even on the Project 25, some of those things circle within the certain narrative of thought process that I saw in the history of our nation, and the levels of control and the levels of domination within the space. Even though we had checks and balances, I still saw the same concepts of the culture that was running the nation still being implemented on both parties, bipartisan within that space. So how is this any different from that standpoint? That's my question.
I'm so glad you asked this, because this is important. First of all, I'm hearing you. From the foundation of our government, there have been things in place to ensure that only certain people keep and maintain power.
Yes.
So that I am definitely not like disagreeing. I agree with that. I think what's different, and maybe what we take for granted a little bit, is a lot of government jobs, for example, they are apolitical. They are merit-based employment where people, provide their resumes based on their attributes and skills. They go into a position, they get that position, and based off of their experience, they're given a certain, they call them a GS class or ES class to determine their payment for their work. And no matter who's in power for the administration, they keep their job because they're working for the specific department, not for the administration. Project 2025, one of the tenets they would like to do is undo some of that, where a lot of merit-based roles would be reclassified as political appointees that require loyalty to the administration in order to keep their role. And if we want to depend on things like getting our refund check quickly, or not being unnecessarily investigated by the IRS simply because of who we are, maybe, or who we are aligned with, or whether it's like Department of Education and processing student loans, which aren't great. We could talk about that for days too. But a lot of folks depend on student loans for the opportunity to go to university. So there's that. There's a lot of processes that could be stinted or changed simply because something that was apolitical before, agnostic to party, is now going to be required to be aligned with party and aligned with loyalty in order to keep their job.
I think that's interesting because even the people that were in these positions, agnostic positions, supposed to be not bipartisan or be equal within their perceptions, they still had a certain lens, and there was certain things that were going on, lobbying, different things that was going on to actually send the interest to certain things a certain type of way. Now, it wasn't as blatant and just open as this particular situation that we're looking at right now, but we cannot ignore everything that has been happening. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's I think that's where I am right now within this whole political climate. I'm at such a place where I understand policy. I understand the systems. I understand how the judicial system, legislative and executive branch, just from the basics of what now I haven't studied extensively on those things, but from we've been taught traditionally, I understand how it's supposed to go, how it's supposed to go. I'm doing my fingers on purpose. But what we've seen has been something completely different. And I think where I am as a free thought leader at this particular juncture in my life, I'm at a place where I'm telling us, and I'm telling the people that listen to me, I'm telling them just straight up, I'm like, look, you're looking for the government to save you. And they've never traditionally have been set in place to save you. They've been set to govern you, to basically put you in a position to set up laws, set up certain things for the functionality of the system of what has been established. to keep it going, but it has not traditionally had a history of really helping all the citizens. And I'm saying that as a Black man, we just became quote unquote citizens within the last 100 years. And I'm being nice about that. You know what I'm saying? So with that being stated, as an African American in America, you know, knowing where we've derived from, knowing what we've come from, and the things that we've endured and things that we've experienced from the government. I'm telling us, and I'm speaking from a standpoint, I'm like, look, we got to save ourselves. We got to come together and begin to work together within the space of helping ourselves to implement change on the local level. Absolutely. So we can impact this level of government. I just saw somebody question, say, I'm confused on what do you mean by looking at the government to save us? What I mean by that is systematically, even when it comes down to dealing with welfare, dealing with the drug administration, the food administration, all these different things. There's so many different things I can go into. I really don't just want to tap into one particular area, but there has been a historic place of systematic approach to get us to rely on government to come in and to kind of save the situation or save the day. And I'm saying from the standpoint of I guess from a tired Black man standpoint, right? Just being honest, you know what I'm saying? Like I can't, I don't trust what's going on. I don't trust the red or the blue party. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. I don't trust none of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So looking for them to set policies, even down to abortion and all these different things. Yes, it's important because it is law. And it can affect us even greater than what already has affected us. But the reality of it is we've been disenfranchised by law for many years. And so it's like, how do we go from here? And even with the information that we're receiving to bring the clarity of what we're receiving, the deciphering of this Project 25, how do we effectively take that information and actually produce something that can stop it or really, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I'm struggling with, even with our representatives, our state representatives, like they're supposed to represent the majority of the state, but they're representing what is the lobbyists, what's been, and we see this. I'm not just talking, I'm saying this is really what's going on, you know, for each state. So, you know, I'll pause there.
And if I may.
Yes, please.
You hit three different things I definitely want to hit on. One, what you said and what government isn't mutually exclusive. I think this framework has been posed of it's either government or community, government or individual. It's not.
Right.
I want to cycle back to like one of the key things that I even was taught in like high school, the idea of government being a social contract, right? The idea of government being a social contract is that if you give the government a little bit, the government is supposed to give you protection, organization, like protection of like the things you own, your property, protection of people, protection, which I admit, especially because of the work from the original project that was dealt with the Reagan administration.
Right.
A lot of protections from us were being stripped away. But I want to delineate, though, the difference between a government worker who's a lot like us, who are just going into an office and helping moving the paperwork and the case work along so that your family could get Social Security, or so that if there was an application for like consumer protection or fraud, to be able to like process that claim or that kind of work. Those are everyday office workers that are frequently people of color, right? I want to separate that from like what you see in legislative branch, where that is where the lobbyists are also dictating the priorities of the government.
Yes.
Like you mentioned the USDA and FDA. You're right. When there are large companies, and a lot of these large companies are funding the work of like Project 2025 and ensuring representatives that hold their interests are in play, right?
Right, right.
They're getting organized.
Right.
But it is that lobbying work that is taking away priorities of the people and hyper focusing on priorities of like corporations, whether it's in farming, whether it's in oil and gas because of climate, whether it's even the stuff we eat, what passes, what doesn't. All of that. Yes, there's some insidious stuff happening with lobbying. But what I also want to encourage us to do is not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Correct.
If you're not liking that our representatives are not representing our interests, we need to hit them at the primary level. We need to be hitting at the local and state level. We can't be ignoring those main elections that determine the direction of either party. Like the reason why, like the Republicans have gone straight Tea Party and now to the Trump, and it's because they speak up and they say, this is what's important. This is what we're going to focus on. And their party gives them exactly what they asked for. And then because they give what they asked for, the billionaires that fund them get what they asked for too.
Right, right.
So our government, yes, like many things built by humans, ego, power.
Absolutely.
There's holes in it.
Yes.
And my prayer every day, and even my daily work, like why I am in the industry I'm in, is to do with my hands to patch that hole little by little as best I can.
Right.
And we got to move things forward because anarchy isn't going to get us where we need either.
Right, right, right. And I think the space of where I'm coming from when I'm seeing, and even just on who I am and what I naturally am, I hear a lot of people. There's a lot of terminology going on in the Christian community, evangelical community, of predictions of a famine that's coming. Right. And we have to prepare ourselves for the famine, get you some land, buy your own crop, do your own, grow your own food and all these different things. There's all this stuff that's coming forth. And for me, I struggle within the space of this conversation because if we're going to talk about famine, we need to talk about who's starting this famine. And what I see just on a prophetic level, just honestly, is there are powers that be that are literally lending a hand to pick us up, but tripping us up at the same time. And I'm looking at that, and I say that from the standpoint of taxation. Let's look at taxation. We're taxed on our income. We get an income tax. They take the money out of our checks automatically.
We're having technical difficulties. Ladies and gentlemen, please, please, please share, because we're getting really deep. And if you have questions, by all means, please go into the message, go into the DM and put your questions in there, because we have a panel today that's going to answer your questions. We're going to also go into the list of the things that Project 2025 consists of, and we're going to be shooting those at our guest today to begin to break down. We won't touch it all today, but I just want to specifically answer certain questions that you can think on, as we move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about Project 2025. I'm Coach Debb, and you're listening to Really Real Radio. Of course, our show is I'm Not Okay Why. I recommend you share. Please share with everyone that has questions about Project 2025, because you're curious about what it is and what it means. Some of you are ignoring Project 2025 because it's going over your head. But we have a special guest that's in the house today that's breaking it down. And of course, while we've been on commercial, people have been like, trying to talk to me. So we had to go on commercial so I could communicate with them by way of text. So many questions. We won't get to them today, and I've been letting them know that. But we are going to extend this out for 4 to 6 weeks so that we can be more of an assistance to people that are really have itching ears about what's going on so we can be informed. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to start with And Dr. Josh, I want you to just please stay, where you are with opening, because you're speaking for the people. There's some that are informed already. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that this is not about party, because the thing about it is, I'm with you. I'm with you when it comes to both parties. But this is about democracy. This is about what's right. This is about being informed and making an informed decision about what it is that you do moving forward. So let's go ahead and Amaris, the first question I have, it's about the end no fault divorce. That's a part of this list. End no fault divorce. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I could talk briefly about it. I would need to probably.
You don't have to go into depth.
Yeah, but I think
I'm going to give you an opportunity to do more work in research, but I just want to be able to enlighten the people on the breakdown of these things, and we're going to come back throughout the weeks, and we're going to be able to do more.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to touch on that high level of what I understand. And then I promise I can definitely go deeper in that too. My understanding from the Project 2025 standpoint is twofold. One, this recommendation is about policy on how to handle federal government and federal judicial and federal legislative. My understanding with divorce is
all three branches.
Yeah, the federal branches. My understanding with divorce, those are lower courts. Like those are state laws that are determined like how one can divorce and
right.
So there's that. Now, it is possible, and this is where I need to do more research. If my understanding is if Project 2025 is driven on eschewing what I like to say, not Christian standards, but conservative Christian nationalist standards of Christianity, is the idea of divorce being, of the devil, shouldn't happen. That woman should stay and put up with it, whatever. And part of probably aligned with a lot of recommendations for policies and laws that I'm seeing in the document. It's the limitations that they want to propose to make it like nationwide to align with that like national theocracy they're looking to establish. That could be a part of it. But I definitely have to do more research. I can't answer succinctly on that particular piece because right now, like I said, my understanding is divorce is state level and determinations on how one can divorce is state level. And then two, it is possible because the desire to set up the nuclear family is one of the focus, right, of the policy. And I know the quick thing to think is like, oh, family, that's great. We want more families. We want more moms and dads and children, right? But to dictate how a family should be structured and to dictate who can be your family and to dictate like who you love and even dictate who you are from a government social contract perspective where it's supposed to be government as an operation, not government as a religion. They're crossing the separation of church and state that was established by the founding fathers. Right. And so that's the part that's concerning. And happy to go more in detail or a different question from there, but sharing what I know. Yep.
No, you it's sort of self-explanatory for those of us that study, you know what I mean? In no fault divorce, this question come from a couple of people that have dealt with abuse and domestic violence, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like having to live under those circumstances, like old times. Like there's no cross, you can't get out, you can't do anything. You got to stick and stay until your death. Dr. Josh, I want you to chime in and break down to people that are listening what our girl Amaris just stated on a more basic level. She was very politically correct, articulate. But for those that need more breakdown, come on in, bro.
Oh my. Why you be doing this to me, Deb? You know I love you, right? But you be setting me up.
You like to stir the pot.
You know what? I'm for it. I don't have a problem with being confrontational. You know, because I don't think confrontation. I don't think confrontation is negative. I think confrontation is something that's necessary. It's all about how you handle confrontation. And a lot of times,
and we're raw and uncut.
Absolutely, and a lot of times while we struggle within the space of even now, with this particular subject we're talking about, is because we don't know how to confront with education, with thought and not emotion. And so we confront a lot of things with emotion within the space of it. So we can't hear the other party. We can't hear what the other person is saying. And we're not really listening to understand what they're saying either. That's the other part about it. Right. Like we're just listening just enough to hear what they say, so we can respond to what they said. You know what I'm saying? So, but the truth of the matter is like I said earlier, and I think this is what get me in trouble a lot of times as a new age thought leader, spiritual leader, prophet, whatever you want to call me. Just don't call me late for dinner, okay? I like to eat on time, okay? But the only thing that gets us in trouble is because we have a certain narrative, and I gotta say it this way. It's gonna hurt some of our feelings, but America the Great. I think we got upset when Obama said it. It's not just a Christian nation anymore. And this narrative to do the things that's being done, it's the same thing that happened. I gotta say it. Oh my God. But the same concept of the colonist mentality to colonize a people and to force your beliefs on a person or a person to believe. You got to believe this. If you don't, then you are an enemy or you're a savage. This is really some major stuff that's happening right now. This is some major stuff because it is really looking a little bit like the movie Pocahontas, right? Savages. Lord help me. Pray for me, y'all. But this is what's happening, guys. And I gotta say this to us because it's all coming under the guise of God wills it. And this is the will of God. And this is about Christianity. And this is about, and I need to say this to us. This ain't got nothing to do with Jesus.
Nothing.
And
nothing.
To be honest about it, to be quite honest and frank about it, the truth of the matter is they know what hot topics to touch to get you to respond.
Yes.
So they'll say certain things, they're writing certain things, putting things in policy. Don't call they put us in those positions to have these conversations, and we're arguing amongst ourselves. But check this out. It's all smoke and mirrors. It reminds me of The Wiz. Don't look behind the curtain. Don't look behind the curtain. Don't worry about who's behind the curtain, Toto. Right. Don't pull the curtain back. Let me be Toto today and pull the curtain back. Because this is all this. I smell it in the atmosphere. I smell it in the room right now. That's what's going on. And I ain't going to bring that up today because I was about to bring up that assassination. Let me not put my fingers up. Y'all can see my fingers. The assassination attempt that happened. But
I'm with
smoke and mirrors, smoke and mirrors, smoke and mirrors, smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
And I'm saying this because we have to, as a people, a nation of people, with you black, yellow, red. I've seen somebody that was blue before, that was purple. It was really dark. I've seen those people too. Yellow. No matter what shade you are, if you are a human in America and you have rights to vote, you need to think. You need to pay attention. You need to open your eyes, take the wool off your eyes, and look behind the curtain because somebody's pulling the string. It reminds me of Amaris. It also reminds me of Pinocchio. Ain't got no strings on me. Ain't got no strings on me. And the whole
all
time
the strings
on him. And they're pulling the strings, and they pull the emotional strings of people. They pull the space of all this, and we get caught up in it every single election. We get caught up in it. We get caught up.
Yes.
Oh, these are God's people, and this is the enemy. This is the devil, because they're not pushing Christian morals. Okay, well, let's talk about that for 1 second. 1 second. So it's Christian moral and morally ethical for us to imprison people and use them as the modern day slave trade. That's Christian morality. Is Christian morality for us to taxate people the way that we're doing, to keep us homeless, is that Christian principle? Is that the word of God? Is that the love of God? How is it that we're so quick to throw up this concept of Christianity or the space of Christian morals when it's for our what we want, right? But when it comes down to just moral ethical of being good to one another, providing for the widows and the orphans, and feeding the hungry, and clothing the naked, and sheltering those who don't have shelter, we get quiet. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the emotional lashing, the emotional, it's just so much. It's just so much mind control that's going on within the media, within everything that's happening. And we just fall for it. And then we're like, oh no, this is God. This is God. God wills it. God wills it. This is the will of the Lord. But we can't stand the brother that sits right our next door neighbor. They're on fire. We don't even go check on them. We gotta call somebody to come check on them.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm having an issue with this moral compass that we keep throwing up when it's necessary, when it's fitting our bill and our narrative, we want to throw it up. And so this whole concept about the authentic families and all this stuff is the same notion. It's to pull emotionalism to get us to the place where we're still divided. Did y'all know? Let me talk about this for 1 second. Have y'all noticed how these same people who were in power, that they propagated the woman of the year being a transgender woman? Out of all the women in the nation who could have represented womanhood, they gave the award to a transgender woman. Where were they at when this happened? Where were they at when am I saying something everybody thinking about? Where were they at when stuff was going, when this stuff was happening, right?
Used to be a Olympian.
Right. Well, so I'm just trying to figure out.
And the irony is Caitlyn Jenner's a Republican.
What's going on?
Hello.
Please, she's advocating against herself, because one of the core principles in Project 2025 is to limit gender expression to the binary, which is saying, and I could get into all that too.
We could go. Today's a good day. We can start it right now. Because this is what's going on.
Looks like we got to stay on the. We only have time for the. I know it. We ain't done with this first one. Y'all doing your thing though, because it covers exactly what is being asked.
Yes,
do your thing.
But it's amazing to me because when we start talking about marriage and getting back to holistic marriage and holistic families, how now all of a sudden this is a thing.
Right.
All of a sudden, this is something that's on the agenda, and we need to do this, and we're following behind it. And I'm talking to my brothers, my sisters of every hue. Right. We are humanity. There is a call for humanity.
Yes.
And we got to come together as humanity to rise up and do something different. But we can't do that if we keep allowing someone to throw a stone and they hide, and then we think it's the other person. You ever seen that? You ever seen that somebody trying to get you to fight somebody? They be like, "Oh, they just hit you. Hit my hand." I remember back in school, they were like, "Hit my hand." You hit that person's hand, then they hit the other person. Like, "Oh, that's for that person." They slapped him in the face. Wait a minute, I hit your hand. How you slap their face? Now all of a sudden they mad at me because I'm supposed to have slapped their face because that's the proxy. But that's what's going on. That's what's happening, guys.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. This is deliberate.
Right.
Do you think the common people will accept a policy that's saying, hey, how we get and produce our food, it needs to be going through these big corporations where they're like messing up the soil and tilling the land and overcropping corn and soy and all that.
It's on purpose.
And we get to keep all the money, or we're going to do everything to make sure you don't have education, you don't have medical care, you don't have food, you don't have housing. You think they're going to present that? No.
Preach, Whitaker,
they're
preach.
going to present, hey, aren't you a good person who loves God?
Right.
Aren't you confused by all these different expressions and genders and change? And are you confused by all this LGBTQ stuff, or all this blackness that we're seeing? Doesn't it confuse you and scare you? What if there was a special place for you that is about God and how God has, the North Star, and the North Star is to be hateful to all those different people?
Hello.
Like, that's what's pulling people in.
This is what gets me about it, because it's not something new under the sun. It's not new. It's the same notion. It's the same concept that happened even with the Crusades, right? It's the same development of what took place. And here we are in America in the 21st century, fastly approaching the 22nd century.
Right.
And we're coming back to a place where there's so much fear mongering amongst us that we can't think straight because we're intoxicated with emotion. We are hypersensitive. We're overinduced. We've got overloads of oxytocin and serotonin, all these chemicals in our brain. The foods are projecting this stuff, genetically modified foods that's being approved by the FDA. It's been approved. You go to other nations, and they won't even accept that food in their country. They want to accept those ingredients in their country, but here it's approved and it's okay. We have the erosion of the soil. We got all this pollution that's going on, and we're wondering why sickness is at an all-time high. I was surprised, guys, that within the last 5 years, how cancer has come on such a sweeping rampage. How many people, how babies are being born with cancer and literally having to go through treatment. They ain't even 5 and 6 years old yet, but they're going through cancer treatment already. And it's happening because what we are approving in the Food Administration and what's going on. And then it works down. How the Food Administration and the Drug Administration work together. But then you took away the books that was teaching people how to do home remedies, and you're trying to make it seem like, oh, that's that hoopla, and that's not real. You need to go to the hospital. You need to go to the doctor. You need to go here. But holistic medicine was how modern day medicine started, even though they took a corrupt left turn real quick, like real quick.
And this is where that intersection of who your legislature is.
Yes.
Who is your representative? How are they funded?
Yes.
Determines the decision making. And yes, things like the FDA, USDA, all the drug administration, those are executive branch. And that's also determined by who's president, right?
Yes.
Because they set the political appointees of the cabinet, and the cabinet runs the departments, right?
Right.
And yes, what you're seeing firsthand, and this is independent of party, you are seeing firsthand the implications of when corporations have the ability and money to sway over the needs of the people.
Correct.
And once again, still want to emphasize that doesn't mean throw the government away.
No.
That means we have to be very intentional on who's in power and who is susceptible to these things.
Right.
But just to also bring it on home to your point, there's so many pieces, and I get it. I'm always team both and. Like, modern medicine and holistic eating.
Yes.
Modern medicine and good food, community and government. And even when you were talking about like the uprising, like it counts in cancer, I didn't, Coach Debb didn't get to go into my full biography or bio here, but I am a data, bio. I'm a data scientist, data engineer. That is my trade. That is like the contracts that I've been blessed to participate with were about being able to be transparent and gather the data so that different facets of these departments can see these numbers with transparency, with clarity to make these decisions. And I'm very curious because you brought up this act. I'm like, I actually want to run the numbers. I want to get some data and see like, has there actually been a rise in cancer and cancer treatments? There's no statistics is rare to say causation.
Yes.
So I'm not going to say it caused it, but we could look at correlations as well as other confounding variables like stress, the amount of stress we go through, the amount of like the temperature, how hot it is can have an effect potentially, the inability to have a safe, quiet, clean home at a reasonable price.
Yes.
Like these all could also be compounding variables that lead to not only sickness of ourselves, but our offspring as well. And so, there's many facets of this.
Absolutely.
Deep dive
and we've talked extensively on this particular platform about the effects of trauma and how trauma has affected even genetically, transgenerational, how it can change the genetics of the family members and the bloodlines and different things from that nature, from just going through trauma. And so the systematic, and the reason why I'm saying what I'm saying, because it is a system that's in place that's governing these things, the governing bodies that's governing these things, which are allowing these levels or these rises of depression and suicide and all these different things, these concepts. This is not something that is just by happenstance. Oh, we just so happen to deal with this. This is something that is going on, that's happening within the midst of us. I don't know if they lost us or not. I don't know what's happening right now. But we have talked about this, and I'm gonna keep talking real quick because I know we're still on. I think we're still going live on Facebook, but we've talked about these things extensively on this platform and about how it's affected us. And so the economic divide and the systematic economic depression or oppression that has taken place within this nation. And I want to say this because part of that divide happened within the space of the disenfranchised locations where education is not there. We see that happen, the rise of the lack of education within a certain region and territory. We see that going on.
And
so
when they come back, I definitely want to talk about.
We got to talk about that.
The education piece of Project 2025. That's another thing that's very insidious on this plan, and I'm looking forward to talking more about that too.
No, that's something that we see happening, that has been continuing to happen, and it's rough out here, man. It's really rough. It's really, really rough out here.
This conversation is deep. We need to have more influence on the community than people outside of the community. We need to trust one another about who we are and not base it off of what other people say in as far as who we are to them. So we're starting with the 2025 project 2025. And we've got someone in the building that's breaking this thing down. And of course, time is catching up on us. Let me just tell you, we're going to continue. We're going to continue because we haven't even touched the surface of where we're headed. Voting is in November. So we've got plenty of time. What we want for our people, for the community, is we want you to make an informed decision about this voting session. You need to understand the importance of voting because you understand your assignment. You're informed. You're making an informed decision because of what you know, not because of what you heard, not because of what you someone told you based off their opinion, but you are getting information, raw and uncut, even if it hurts. Because I've got Dr. Josh, who's the realest amongst the panel, that's just going to give it to you. He's going to dig off in you and open up your head for you to get it. So moving forward, prepare yourself each week with pad and pen so you can have questions and you can get answers. Amaris is going to be with us moving forward. Absolutely. So it will be her and other officials, and we're going to break this down every week, giving you information. We're still stuck on the first one that someone asked me, regarding the marriage. And it's just so, you can't just slide through. You can't just slide through trying to kind of brush over a thing. It's requiring the breakdown. So as we continue, we're going to hang in here maybe another 10 minutes, and then we're going to start closing it out. But Amaris, I want you to take this time, to kind of, for the people that are still questioning, how it relates to them, mm-hmm. How can they actually get this 1,000 sheet packet? It's like 1,000 forms, right?
It's it's
free
pages.
To everyone,
it's
right?
Free. It's free. It is simple as going to, like, type into Google, type in the Heritage Foundation, and inside their website, not only do they have the facets of all their different policy research for different parts of, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's food, whether it's education, whether it's legislative recommendations, things like that. But what gets you to the specific Project 2025 is you'll see a video on there about how they're holding trainings. They're holding free trainings for folks who want to sign up to be part of their employee force. You can do various 30 to 90-minute trainings and sign up as part of, the nickname for it is like conservative LinkedIn. But they have like a database where they're pulling people that they've identified aligns with the political agenda that Project 2025 is about. And on that site, they have where you can apply, the trainings, and then the playbook. The playbook is a free PDF. I downloaded it myself. And it is thick. It is about 1,000 pages. There are also other shorter, like abridged analysis books on Amazon as well. As well as for folks who are like, reading. It could be as simple as TikTok. What introduced me to Project 2025 were some incredible TikTok channels where I know this one woman, and she's a Black woman, and I've been looking for her handle all day. So my hope is when I'm back next week, I have her exact handle. She had a highlighter in that thick book, and she's been highlighting stuff and breaking it down via video, like the facets of Project 2025, as well as, I don't know if some folks are on YouTube. John Oliver from Last Week Tonight always drops his main segments on YouTube. And he has a segment about what happens if there's a second Trump administration. And he goes into detail a lot of the stuff that I've been explaining to you guys about the tenets of things they're trying to implement with Project 2025. Now, as someone who, I'm agreeing with you, Dr. Josh, I'm going to call you Dr. Josh. I'm agreeing with you. Current government frequently does not meet the needs of Black and brown people. In fact, a lot of decisions made are to extract our labor for less or for free, or not protect us when we need protecting, or make things harder for us to get resources, but making it seem like we're the ones sucking up all the resources, like all the welfare and all the, when statistically, That's not true, right? But what we don't want to do is take for granted what we already have. They've been putting this plan in place since the Civil Rights Voting Rights Act came into place in 1963. The Heritage Foundation came into formation right after Roe v. Wade.
Wow.
Right? So they've been trying to undo this stuff since we got it.
Wow.
So we don't want to take it for granted either. That's why I'm saying, even with your frustrations with government, and trust me, I am frustrated. We're out here spending money to fund the decimation of a people, actually multiple peoples in multiple spots.
That's right.
All that money could have gone to our student loans,
right,
or to investments in the community, or lowering our rent, or keeping us provided with health care, especially those with chronic conditions and disabilities like myself.
Right.
Like, I am frustrated with both parties. However, I do not want to lose what we had barely got in 1963, right? We barely had that, and we haven't really had a tenuous hold on that even there.
No.
Wow.
And so moral of the story is, what I don't want us to do is think because government and how it's presented and perceived in the media feels so large and so unfeeling and so not about us. I want to separate that appearance from the reality. And the reality is, government is a bunch of departments in buildings with workers that look like you and I, that keep the wheels turning, to keep all the infrastructure things. And I'm not just talking about roads. I'm talking about provision of resources, being able to, like I said, get our refunds, being able to, like, we were going to go into education. This country was founded, even though I know they did a horrible job with us, and that was on purpose, but for originally for white males, and then expanded further as we moved along. One of the intentions of the colonies into our nation is the idea and concept of public education, to have an educated class of people to be active participants in government, right? Project 2025 wants to roll back even the concept of federally funded education, public education.
Right.
So aren't y'all thrilled that there is a public option for education? Because we know childcare is expensive. And like, I know when up to age 4, right, that is usually in the hands of parents, where you have to pay a substantial amount of money for childcare. But if they get rid of the public education option and only allow for vouchers or private education, things like that, who's going to watch your 5 to 18-year-old, right? Who's going to educate them? Can you afford it? Like, these are everyday things. And it is the federal government that ensures that a state isn't saying, I shouldn't say ensures, that tries.
Okay, because I'm about to, I was coming for it.
Tries to be like, hey, you can't just have a different education standard in Florida than we do, like,
even though it's going
Maryland
on like that,
or something like that.
Even
though they're trying it, they literally want to dismantle the federal education check of it, so that they could teach what they think is important.
Right.
That's not going to serve anybody either.
This is the problem that we have, because I come from the South. I grew up in the South, and
Me too.
I was privileged enough that we was so unstable that my mom moved a couple different places. So we ended up leaving from the South and went up north. We went to Wisconsin, and we lived in Wisconsin. And so the education system up there was completely different from Columbus, Georgia. We then left from Columbus, Georgia, came back to Atlanta, Georgia. The education was different from Atlanta, Georgia, from Wisconsin. Then from Atlanta, Georgia, back to Columbus. And then from Columbus, we went all the way over to Seattle, Washington. Seattle, Washington's education system was completely different from Georgia, right? I've seen it even in my adult years, dealing with children, watching them in the education system, the education system of Texas versus Arizona versus these places. So I'm seeing all this. Everything you're saying is true. But once again, like I said, I think that this is the silver lining is this for me, for the Project 25, is it's going to force us to wake up. That's just the bottom line for me. This is really going to force us to think for ourselves and really, what they say, strap yourself up by your own bootstraps, really on that level. We're going to have to build community amongst ourselves and really begin to build I see it. I already see it, especially amongst brown and black people, even Asiatic people, people from different cultures. They already do it. They keep their families, they keep everybody close knit. They'll send one or two to school, to go to college, get their education, but the majority of the family, the whole, they're keeping it in a close-knit type of situation, right? So they can be educated on a certain level, because if not, then they are going to rely on the public education system, which America has one of the lowest rates of education in public schooling. The way we do schooling, we over school, we over sensitize them in schooling, so they're not retaining certain things, and that's all they are learning how to do is retain information. So they're not taught to be critical thinkers. They're just taught to be robots. And so that's why, right, and test takers. Wow. So that's why we're not leading in education in the world, right? So, you know, we got these things that's going on that there needs to be reform in the education system. They need to be reformed all around us, right? But like I said, again, I stand on it very strongly. I think that we are in a forking road right now.
Yes.
And we're going to have to make a decision. I'm not saying be tyrannical and go against the government, shut the government down. I'm not saying that, but I am going to say this. Let me say, I'll say, but however, I feel that happening.
Yes.
I see that. I see the citizens' unrest. I see it. I can see it, and even here locally,
but you can feel something in the air too.
That's what I'm saying. But even here in Georgia, you got Cop City, right? They talk about Cop City,
right?
Copland, where they told us, I believe it was a couple weeks ago, they said, don't nobody go outside right now because they're trying the new AI technology with the policing. So if you got any issues with what's going on with the tail lights, with anything, they're gonna catch you. You're gonna get it, right?
Yep.
But this is all on purpose. They know
it's all on purpose.
What's happening. You know what the economic system looks like. Georgia hasn't had an increase on actual fair wages in I don't even know how long. I think the fair wage is still $7 here.
Yeah, that was 2005 when they implemented that.
And
you didn't even talk about how Brian Kemp recently just signed into law who can bail and how bail can even be received, as well as like one of the terms for bail where it is excluded from community provision is if you were arrested based off of rioting. In other words, AKA if a cop thinks that your protest is a riot, they can throw you in jail and you have to either pay bail out of pocket or you're going to have to sit there for years until your trial.
Right. And what was so crazy about that was from even back in the protesting, for those of you who didn't know, they were undercovers that was the ones that was rioting. They were the ones that were inciting the riots and the damaging to properties and stuff. But that was on purpose, systematically, because they knew this law. They knew what was going on. They knew the provision. They knew the things that are happening. Now, some people will say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. No, I'm a truth seeker. And I think for myself, and I'm imploring you and I'm challenging you, even with this information that our dear sister is bringing forth to us to bring clarity on Project 25, to think for yourself. Pay attention to what's going on. Wake up.
For yourself.
Think. You've got to think for yourself.
Please think for yourself. Also, don't take for granted the power that you have. They currently, the fulcrum of Project 2025 is they're taking our disillusionment and running with it. They're hoping you're not going to pick up on it. They're so bold in thinking and hoping that you don't pick up on it. The fact that this in-depth policy recommendation is free on Beyonce's internet to just grab and download is hoping that we aren't going to read those pages and not understand the magnitude of what they're trying to implement. We want us to actually instead not lean into learned helplessness, which taps into my social psychology degree, right? We don't want to lean into our learned helplessness thinking that we don't have power in our hands. We have power in our hands, and it could be grassroots, it could be advocacy, it could be community, it could be local organization, it could be making sure you and your friends are set up right and tight and nice, where there's food, clothing, like housing, working together to have community, all of that. There's and you could even go as far as thinking being a part of a government is not that far away from you. Don't fall into the disillusion that government is so big and so unattainable and so far away that you can't be a part of it. There are even current representatives and senators right now who have stepped into local and federal government with the same thinking that we have. But the issue is, like any representative government, it takes a majority to enact laws and make a change. And if we continue to not, for example, do you know why a lot of our legislation that we've put forth have not been passed? It's because the Senate requires 60 people to not filibuster, to bring the law to the floor and to vote for it to pass. Wow. We haven't had a 60-person party majority, I think, in 100 years, if I'm honest. And things get shut down if the Senate cannot bring it to the floor. Laws cannot be passed unless the Senate brings it. So that's why people like Senator Warnock was very important. He was very important because we need more people, especially in the Senate and especially in our local legislative areas, whether it's mayor, whether it's state legislative bodies, it is governor, right? Brian Kemp is still in there, and it was by a hairline. And to be honest, part of it was because of how the voting setup was. And then Brian Kemp took away even more voting protections for this upcoming elections, where you can't have water in line, but you standing in line for 14 hours. Make it make sense.
Yeah, it's really tyrannical. It's really sad. The space of it, and which is the reason why I'm saying what I'm saying about us really coming together and building. And this is for all the celebrities. This is for all the people. You are making all this money. Y'all doing all this stuff. You came out the projects, but you bought into the foolishness of it, but you haven't came back and did anything. This is for all the leaders, all the mega pastors. You got this big old large congregation, but you're taking in all this resources, but you're not doing anything to actually help establish infrastructure and economic safety within the space of your congregation. This is an indictment to everybody. Wake up. Let's really be about it and really try to build within that space, because we see what's happening. And I don't think, to be sad, the sad truth about it is I don't see these days ending no time soon. I don't see that. I don't see this just going to up and it's just up today and then it's going to be gone tomorrow. We're going to get over it. Going to get over it with a great. And what you were talking about was the apathy of especially Christianity. Oh, we so disillusioned, man. It's crazy. God going to do it. God going to do everything, and God going to have the right person in place. No, God through you help put the right people in place. Yeah. God through you actually see people through you, right? So it's in the space when we take back, like you said, I love the way you said it, but I'm just gonna say it my way because I'm Joshua. Take back your power, right? You got to take back your power, take back your voice. Let your voice be heard. Let it have. You guys need to start having these meetings at your local churches, right? They want to talk about demons all day. You need to talk about the demons in the, never mind. Demons in the White House. But anyway, what I'm saying is we gotta have these conversations. We gotta make these unnatural, let's make this common conversation amongst us, right? That we're actually talking about this at the barbershop.
Let's make it common.
Right. That's right. We talking about Bobo and
natural.
Hobo that took this man. You know,
organic.
He took her girlfriend. She took his man, and y'all talking about all that. Talk about this. Let's talk about this in the hair salons. Let's talk about this, right? Get this conversation going and really and be empowered again. One thing I'll say this and I'll leave it alone. Some of the most impactful people
we got to get ready to bring it down.
Yeah. Some of the most impactful people in our history, didn't have traditional education. They educated themselves.
Yes.
And they made a huge impact in economics. They made a huge impact in technology, things that we see every day, common use things that we're doing every day. They didn't take an excuse. They didn't sit back and say, oh, I was disenfranchised and I can't do it. They rose up and they learned something. They challenged themselves to go to the next level. Success is on the other side of you coming out of your comfort zone. I'm done. I love you guys.
Whoop. Absolutely. And thank you, Coach Debb. I definitely would love to come back as many times as you will have me. This has been an incredible conversation. I would love to tap in more. Absolutely.
Indeed. Well, you haven't done your due diligence to just this one day. We need you. And Dr. Josh is like, you know, all of them got that raw going on, like Dr. Josh. So you right in with the real. You in with the real, honey, because that's how they be coming. And I'll be giving them free reign too. I'm like, get them.
That's great.
So it's like,
that's great.
I just thank God for this opportunity, you know, and it's time to just get away, you know. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you. Thank you to I'm Not Okay. Why? Which is raw and uncut to sweep under the rug or what? You know, it don't matter. Or don't stir the pot. No, don't say that. Don't do that. We are not the lesser. We are the greater. And it's time that we are informed. You're worth it. We're not making any more moves just by somebody pulling us along. We need to go willingly because we understand and we know where we're headed. I'm Coach Debb. Please tune in every Tuesday and Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a new episode and replay on Thursdays of the same show on Tuesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. You can log on to reallyrealradio.com, okay? So that you can be informed about when the different shows and different things are going on, because Really Real Radio be out there doing some stuff for the community. They feed, and you want to follow so that you can be a part of what's going on. I'm Coach Debb. I love what I do. Thank you, Amaris, for being a part of the family. You are not family. Dr. Joshua, thank you, sir. Fan favorite. Please believe it. And of course, we have others. Y'all know who they are. Follow everyone on social media, on all outlets. Please like and subscribe on the YouTube channel, Relationship Lounge 19. We actually did a live on there today. So you can go on there and you can see this whole thing over again, all right, as a replay. Also, I want you to comment. Let me know what you think about the show. Also put questions in there, because we're going to keep this going for another 5-6 weeks or longer. It just depends on how it goes. We're going to cover the entire 2025 project forms, and it's a whole bunch of them. So we're gonna dig in. Remember to love yourself. Love everybody. So long.